Hi everyone, this is Stephen here. This is the first of two videos that will make up the price list that will go out this Wednesday evening, April 16th, 9 p.m. Sydney time sharp. If you like the look of any of the records on here and would like the opportunity to buy them, then drop me an email to shortcutsrecords@gmail.com. There's now over 350 of you on this mailing list, so thank you very, very much. I'm just going to quickly show off this t-shirt. I made this yesterday because I went to a 50th birthday party and I went as Phil Collins. Apparently I look a little bit like Phil Collins. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. This list is the classic rock, pop and power pop list, and it's got a record that I'm going to use to kick this off that is very, 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 very important to me. And you might not know it. It is Teenage Symphonies to God by Velvet Crush. By the way, you're going to see a t-shirt of this very soon because I've scanned this image in and I'm going to make a t-shirt. There's the back, which by the way is kind of reminiscent of the photos that were used and the kind of color scheme of Oasis, who came, of course, a few years after Velvet Crush. This record was made in 1994 on Creation Records, which is another link to Oasis, but it pretty much stops there. Velvet Crush were a power pop trio: Rick Menck, Paul Chastain, and Jeffrey Underhill. I went to see them quite a few times in London. There was an absolute explosion of music journalism in the 90s. And there were a number in the UK, a number of monthly music magazines, some that are still around, some that are long gone. So, it was the peak Q era, Select, after Word magazine, which was one of my favorites that didn't last that long. Uncut started around about this time. Mojo came a little bit later. Obviously, Rolling Stone had been around for a long time. But the one that I liked the most, which was also short-lived, was a monthly music magazine called Vox, which was in the same stable as NME. So it was more oriented toward the guitar pop of the time, but with a little bit of a more mature look. But they also had an amazing reissue section as well. And I remember the review of this. I bought this album purely on the review that was in Vox magazine that, of course, I cannot find anywhere now. I've looked online. It gave the record 8 out of 10 and said that it was the best album on the Creation label. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. This is the era when I was buying probably a CD or two a week, head up to HMV or to somewhere and pick it up, and there it was. I played this thing to death. They formed in Providence, Rhode Island, a very small US state, and they've been around for a while. And I had developed a bit of a following for power pop. I'd been introduced to Big Star, and I was starting to get a handle on these types of bands. And obviously I liked Velvet. I liked Teenage Fan Club and records like that. So I was kind of just getting into power pop. And this record obviously owes a great deal to Big Star, the Byrds, R.E.M. The link to R.E.M. was huge because it produced by Mitch Easter, who produced a number of early, mid-period, I guess, R.E.M. albums. And why did this record hit me so hard? I had never really gotten into kind of jangle pop, harmonies. It just wasn't my thing. I was kind of getting there. I mean, this Big Star, whilst they had some of that, were kind of harder edged. There are tracks in this record that are pure guitar honey and just beautiful melodies. I think of Weird Summer, of Star Trip. The opening two tracks, You Hold Me Up and My Blank Pages, are bizarrely my least favourite on the album, yet they are, I see them now popping up on compilations and things as power pop classics. Where my love of this record truly begins is the third track, Why Not Your Baby. I played this thing to death, and I actually think it took me a long time to realise that it wasn't a Velvet Crush song, that it was a cover version of a Gene Clark song, and therein began my love of Gene Clark and White Light and all the classics, Some Misunderstanding. I mean, it began with Velvet Crush. It's just an amazing record, and songs like Faster Days. I don't understand how Faster Days wasn't just a massive hit. I guess there are lots of these bands that at the time had a following, loved them. I watched them play every time they came to London. It was like a thing. I loved them, and so I never, of course, could find a version on vinyl. The originals, I think, were very few made, and the repress was announced, I think, in 2023, and I'm waiting patiently for it, impatiently, I guess. But the rules of whatever the major label was that repressed this, I don't think it was Creation, were that it was the repress is only to be released in the US, which is why you could never get it here. And I remember I was back in Europe or in the UK tail end of last year, and I went to a record shop, no sign, and I found out that there was some stipulation in the agreement that meant that it could only be a US release. So of course that meant I had to go to the US. So I found a store that had a few copies. I ordered some. One of you, Mark, already has one. This one's mine. I've got one other. I love it. If you don't know it, give it a listen. It is just jangle pop brilliance. The title track or the title of the album, Teenage Symphonies to God, in reference or in homage to Brian Wilson's name or kind of description of Pet Sounds. Yeah, it's lovely. It's so lovely, and I don't know. The band were really only loved in the UK, never really made it in the US, never made it in Australia as far as I'm aware. But I love that record to bits, and so hopefully someone out there discovers it and loves it too. Okay, now for something completely different. The Japanese absolutely loved the Runaways. This is the hard cardboard gatefold of their Live in Japan album, only ever released in Japan, maybe re-released afterwards. Live versions of Queens of Noise, Rock and Roll, You Drive Me Wild. I think the live version of Cherry Bomb was pretty great. What's really fun about this release, though, on the Mercury label, is what the Japanese put in as the extras. So I'm going to start here. It is kind of like pin-ups of all 5 of the band members. That's Joan Jett. Who is this? That's Jackie Fox. This is Lita Ford, of course, went on to a great career of her own. There's the kind of the ubiquitous lyric sheet. I'm going to come to something about that that's pretty cool as well. This is Sherry Curry and Sandy West. Now, on the back is one of these surveys. So it's all the band members answering questions like, what's your real full name, your height and weight, member of your family and their names, occupation of your parents, an episode in your childhood. In this one, Sandy West said, I fell off my horse. Episode in your school days, I was a troublemaker. All of these are absolutely superb. And on the back of the lyric sheet are little letters, or little notes that the band wrote to their fans in Japan. I tell you, this is it's just over and above stuff. I'm just going to see if I can grab the Joan Jett. I want to see what trouble Joan Jett got into at school. Episode in your school days. I almost got straight A's once. Episode in your childhood. I fell off my tricycle and I bashed my face. Stars you like or respect. No way! Oh my god! That is so cool. I'm changing the order a little bit here because the mighty Joan Jett. Stars you like or respect. Susie Quattro. Cheap Trick. And Rodney's Stuff. I don't know Rodney's Stuff. Food you like. Rare steak. McDonald's. It's actually amazing. But I have a Susie Quattro record coming up. In fact, I might do it next. Just to earn the respect of Joan Jett. So there you have it. What an amazing package. And by the way, this Susie Quattro record has its own, I guess, Japanese idiosyncrasies as well. This is 1975's Your Mother Won't Like Me. There it is. Another kind of hard cardboard gatefold in absolutely immaculate condition. So I listened to side one of this earlier, which is the first side of Susie Quattro music I have ever heard. And I was kind of, obviously, I hadn't realised that Joan Jett was a fan until just a few seconds ago. But I'll tell you a little bit about the music in a second. I just want to show you this. This is the poster that comes with the Joan Jett record. Look at that. She looks quite demure there. Not the kind of rock and roll hard-ass bassist that you might think. And really, this record's kind of fun. It's not a rock record. It's more of a soul funk record. I remember my dad and my mum both being massive Susie Quattro fans. I definitely remember having Susie Quattro singles in the house. They were, she was huge in the UK. And this was the record that tried to break her in the US. And you can hear, this is bizarre, but it's true, you can hear Stevie Wonder. But you can also hear, like, Trampled Underfoot by Led Zeppelin with those squelchy kind of bass lines and kind of synths and things. I reading some of the reviews, it's an interesting one. At the time, it wasn't much loved, but amongst Susie Quattro fans now, you'll find a decent cohort that say, well, this is by far her best record. So I guess you never can tell with these things. But there you go. Who would have thought that Joan Jett would love Susie Quattro? The first time I had a Susie Quattro record in my list. All right, let's go to this one. Another first for me, but a band that a lot of you know and love, and it is ZZ Top. This is the best of ZZ Top. The Japanese first press in really immaculate hard cardboard. Tush, Waiting for the Bus, Jesus Just Left Chicago, Francine, Just Got Paid, Lagrange, Blue Jean Blues, Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, Heard It on the X. Just classic after classic. And what I love about this, you get this really kind of cute little lyric sheet, but you also get this, the coup de grace. For those of us who've been lucky enough to see ZZ Top live in the Metro is my favourite gig in the history of my gig going in Australia. There is a poster of ZZ Top playing live. How fabulous is that? Absolutely superb. And from what I can tell, there aren't very many copies around with this poster, so I don't know. Sometimes the Japanese would limit the kind of the number of records that would get to post. Sometimes the poster would only go in the first few thousand of a run, etc. So to get one that's as pristine as this is very cool. All right, I got a few kind of Beatles and Beatles oriented records because You know how much there are certain series of these I love. So this is the 73 Abbey Road with Obi in fantastic condition. This is the 76 Revolver. This is the hardest to get in condition where the sleeve isn't mottled. This one is in fantastic condition. And then Wings, Band on the Run. I think the album that is clearly their best, and that includes the fold-out poster as well. So 3 beautiful little Beatles bits and pieces. I'm going to surprise you all with what's coming after this Elton John record. So this is the classic, again, hard cardboard gatefold of Honky Chateau. In fact, this is one of these little fold-out kind of sleeves. Honky Chateau. There's the band: Bernie Taupin, Nigel Olsson, Elton John, Davy Johnson, Dee Murray, and Jean-Luc Ponty, the electric violinist. And this is the book that goes along it. It's all present and correct the way it should be. Now, this is one of 3 records by Elton John that appears in Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums you should in the history of the world. Now, I am going to let you guys mull over what the other 2 are, and you will see if you were correct at the end of this video, which will be in a few records' time. I'm now going to transition to something by Honky Tonk Chateau, by the way, or Honky Chateau. I think it's number 212-ish, something like that. There's one that's higher and one that's lower. Honky Chateau features, of course, Rocket Man. Reached number 2 in the UK, number 6 in the US. The Honky Chateau refers to Chateau de Reville, which then became home to both David Bowie and Pink Floyd. Yeah, it's a really nice record. All right. I'm going to go through 6 modern represses that came in a collection that I bought recently that I think more of you out there will love than me. Some of these are albums that I've never heard before. For example, this one, Human Clay by Creed. Now, all of these are, from what I can tell, I'm going to do a bit more digging, they're all around the kind of 2015, 2016, 2017 repress kind of region. This one is a double LP in really, really nice condition. The only one of these that has any kind of vinyl marks that I can see whatsoever is the final one by Sade. But these ones are all just in fantastic condition. The guy I bought them off kind of told me he's selling them because he never played them. And there's some pretty big ones to come. What surprised me about this album isn't so much the music, because I kind of expected that 90s guitar forward kind of gruff post-grunge sound. But also the sheer number of hits that came from this thing. With Arms Wide Open won the Grammy for Best Song in 2001. I would never, ever have guessed that Creed were that big. I think it sold 11 or 12 million copies. Early pressings of this are super expensive, and you can get some that have kind of got 3D images of this stuff. But I played a bit of this earlier, and it's pretty muscly. It's a pretty big, thick sound. If you're into these kind of anthemic kind of tunes, you're gonna enjoy that very much. It's kind of surprised. And of course, this follows right on to the next one. This is the Foo Fighters, and similarly, this is a double LP collection. Similar time frame, again, vinyl that is like new, and this is a 2 LP collection of their greatest songs. So All My Life, Best of You, Everlong, My Hero, Learn to Fly, Monkey Wrench, Big Me, This Is a Call. Goes on and on, doesn't it? This is a band that I just don't get on with at all. I always describe the Foo Fighters to my friends that they're a band a lot of people like but no one loves. But I think in Australia that's not necessarily true. I think I think that statement's kind of false. I think there's a lot of people who do love that band. I'm just not one of them. And I don't love this band either. But again, similar thing. This is Linkin Park. This is paper cuts, 2 LP, heavy vinyl with booklet in this case of the best of Linkin Park. Again, if someone had said that these were just out the shop, you probably would accept that. It goes on. I've got, again, beautiful copy of Paranoid by the mighty Black Sabbath on the Vertigo label. What I need to suss out for you all, and I will do by Wednesday, is what these presses are, who is responsible for them. Some of these modern Paranoid represses are very fine indeed. Again, this is a gatefold. We also have the recent repress of Icehouse's Primitive Man. Now this is unplayed, completely unplayed, and so whoever buys this, you can have the pleasure of playing Great Southern Land and all the classics from this. And then finally, I mentioned Stronger Than Pride. This would be the only one that would be kind of VG/VG plus. The rest of them are strong VG plus / near mint. This one's definitely got a few marks on it. It plays really well though. This is Sade's third album, Stronger Than Pride. Sade, of course, born in Nigeria, brought up in the UK, and just an 80s kind of smooth pop icon. This record is, I think, her most intimate, certainly her most warm sounding, very, very kind of tactile record. I think Paradise was a huge hit. I just like a lot about it. She's so sophisticated. And those of you who are into this record will know this, but for those who are a little bit new to Sade, have a listen to the percussion. The percussion on her songs can be super subtle and is always intriguing. On the tune Haunt Me, for example, which is the fourth track on side one, there's a looped recording of a Moroccan street musician, kind of slowed down and layered, even though it was a live recording, and it's used to kind of underpin the vocal, and it's again just sophisticated and just so Sade. So there you have it, the classic rock, pop, and power pop list from Teenage Symphonies to God all the way through to Stronger Than Pride by Sade via Elton John, Suzi Quatro, Creed, Linkin Park. That's a journey. Now, I asked the question, what were the 3 Elton records in Rolling Stone's 500 best albums of all time? Number 463, a record that we've had many times here. The Japanese presses of all of these records, by the way, are exemplary. But Tumbleweed Connection from 1970 was listed 463, the concept album that Elton created to really celebrate American roots music. Then Honky Chateau, that's on tonight's list. Now, this is 251, and this is more kind of band-oriented, classic singer-songwriters. You got Rocket Man, Honky Cat, etc. But the highest on the list, all the way up at number 112, one of the highest ranked double albums, is Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Candle in the Wind, Benny and the Jets, which is my favorite Elton John song, and many more. So if you got those 3, well done you. All right, as always, like, subscribe, give me some feedback on the list. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Thank you. Bye.